GD Nation, what's going on? Hey, Zach Edwards here with another game design course. This is the next week. This is week number 2. We're going to be talking about the George Parker and the Parker brothers and creating your customer avatar. Now, we're going to talk to you a little bit more about this as we go, but I want to do a fun little recap of last week. So we talked about Milton Bradley, who was the one that started off with the Game of Life, thanks to other games in the past, such as the Mansion of Happiness. And again, as I said, we would talk about Mansion of Happiness in a few weeks. I think it's third week or fourth week when we'll actually talk about them, the creator, and the game itself. But before we get to that point, Milton Bradley did some great things. And one of the things that he had a cause. He wanted to help people to overcome the stresses and depression that came from the Great Depression. Or actually, at his time, it was 1856, so it was a recession. And if you haven't been through a recession right now, how do you describe it? So I went through a recession, the last one in 2008, and all of a sudden I lost my job. It was more than just losing my job. It was actually where I was out of a job, and also my family didn't have the means to survive. And so I did everything I could to find a new job and continue bringing in money. But how stressful is that? Now, Milton Bradley saw that in his time in 1856. So he decided he was going to create a game to bring people out of that and actually be able to look forward to life. Because actually the hard topics was there was actually suicide then. There was huge amounts of depression, a lot of violence, and people going hungry because they didn't have the means to survive. Milton Bradley wanted to be able to help them overcome that, so he created his cause. In week 1, we actually talk about what your cause is. What's your why for creating games or being a game designer? Why do you want to be a game designer? Now, there was 5 steps that we came up with, and I know there's a few more, and some people have mentioned it in the comments. There is, I'm good at designing games. I have a great idea. I want to make money. Well, as we discussed in week 1, those 3 will not really get you to the point that you want to be in order to continue designing games. Because if any critiques come your way that you don't like, or hard times like you can't sell your game, a lot of times people crumble. They will not stick with their games because they didn't set their why on a sure foundation. Then we said, what if you're just doing it to have fun? That was number 4. So if you're putting a foundation on you're just having fun, it doesn't matter if people critique you and don't like your game. You like what you're doing. You're just having fun putting it together. And you can go through 1,000 games, and every one of them, it's not a waste of time because you're just having fun. At the same time, the 5th reason, the 5th why, was one of the most powerful ones because it creates a cause behind you. It's a reason why you're actually doing this, doing the game design. And because you have a cause, all of a sudden you're going to be more into actually getting it done. Sorry for the technical difficulties. My laptop screen keeps turning off. Okay, so let's go into this week. Oh, and one last thing. So then our assignment over the weekend, and hopefully you were able to get that done, was to compare and contrast games now with the games of the future, or the games now of the games with the games of the past. We wanted you to map it out. So for us, I had mapped it out before. Oh, I actually took it out of my notes. No, here it is. So I mapped it out in my journal, and then I wanted to go a little bit further. And I actually mapped it out in a flow chart. So these are the games that came up. So this is the years that they were developed. These are the games that came out. And on this side, it's like low skill, but just having fun. And on here is high skill. So, and the complexity that there was in here. Also, like right here, when the low skill started going away and started molding towards mid-level skill and higher expert skills, all of a sudden there's a break-off where Candyland came in. Candyland was one of the first child-focused games that was created. And it was actually created in a hospital for kids that were suffering from polio. And so with the complexity, children's games, the complexity went down. And then all of a sudden, like down here, they broke off the mid-level complexity, broke off and started going easy for party games. So these are some of the trends that we found out by doing last week's assignment. Now you're going to find a lot of different trends. And what I asked you to do is focus on a certain type of game that you want to design. It could be a board game, but narrow it down a little bit further. It could be a board game that has a certain path that you're going to go on. Then take all the games that basically led up to today with those type of games and try to figure out where the trend is going. What's the next step? What's the next evolution in the game design industry when it comes to games with a certain path, with any one of these criteria? Find out what that is, because that's where you want to put your game. And you also want to take similarities from the past games that people already play, because when people feel that there's a similarity, they feel more comfortable with the game that they're playing. And they're more willing to play it if they understand it's like Risk, or it's like chess, or it's like Monopoly. Because they have something to compare it to, they feel more comfortable when they actually start playing it. So find where the trend's going, find out exactly where you want to be, and the trend will hopefully hit your spot, your new type of game, and then bring some similarities in there with it. So it makes people feel comfortable with playing your new game. It makes it so that the trend will actually come closer to you, because that has a reason to, and people have a desire to become close to that new change. Now, as I was saying, with historical conquest, we decided to find out where the trends were going with games. We went into card games. We did certain things that other card games did. And then after current time, we basically mapped out where we wanted to be. And our trend that we want to be able to hit, or we want the industry trend to hit, is educational games, epic and high skill educational games. And so hopefully at some point they will hit our trend, and we're going to be the only ones there to fulfill all of our customers' desires. So we're hoping that at some point it will actually get to that point. Okay, now, so for coming up, today we're going to be talking about game design when it comes to George Parker. Now, if you haven't heard of George Parker, you might know him with his three brothers, known as the Parker brothers. So, flipping over to the first page of this week's week's section, you have George S. Parker. So he was a man who, his father actually died when he was 5 years old? 11 years old. So his dad passed away. His dad was his breadwinner, but after his dad passed away, his family was still able to survive. Now, have you ever seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? You know how in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, there's the aunts and uncles that actually live in Charlie's house with his parents? Well, this was much like that, except Charlie, George Parker, didn't have both his parents. He had only his mom. Then, and that was when he was 11 years old, but he had his aunts and uncles that lived in the house as well. So his relatives were actually living in the same house with him. But then his mom passed away at age 22? 18. And so she passed away. So there's all these catastrophes, all these hard things that happened for him, and yet he continued to go. And it was most likely because of those hard times that his siblings actually got closer together and were able to work together and create Parker Brothers. Now, let me go back a little bit further. Okay, so George, he had a desire to create games. So he actually designed a set of games for a set of friends. So we're going to be talking about today is customer avatars, basically the people that will be playing your game. And we want to be able to map out the creation of your game depending on what that avatar is going to be, what that customer, that player is going to be. Now, George knew his friends, and so he was able to create a game called Banking. Now, the great thing about banking is that it was all about finance. It was about money, which is exactly what his friends wanted to. That was the topic that they wanted. There's some friends that you might have that want to play with zombies. They want to do war, end of worlds. They might even want unicorns that poop rainbows. something like that. You need to be able to understand your avatar, your customer avatar, the person that's going to play it or even buy it, and try to map out the game compared to that. Now, I'm going to go a little more into that because it's not just about what they want, it's what you want as well. So we'll get to that point in just a minute. So George Parker, at age 19, came up with banking, and played it with a bunch of friends. Well, funny enough, it became such an interesting game that he actually produced it. And yeah, I don't have so the information's right here. Let's see, he self-published. He tried to get other people to publish it for him, but no game designer, no publisher would actually take it. So he decided to self-publish. So back then, he was able to create with $40, 500 sets. Now, just so you know, a set, like, let's just take the game of Monopoly. A Monopoly game, to actually create it in low quantities, is at least $20 to $30 per box to create. As you get into higher quantities, it's a lot less. Now, he was able to make 500 copies with just $40. And again, $40 is a lot back then. So with that 500 sets, he goes out and he sells it right away. He almost sells the whole thing with about $140 profit. So now he went from $40 to $180. So that's 4.5 times more money than he actually put into the product. So he takes that money and puts it all back in to creating more games. And so he sells all of those. Now, by the age of 18, when his mom passed away, he was out selling his game and doing other side work. And his brother was out there selling oils. And his brother wanted to show his support. So he helped him out in the mailroom. He was trying to send out all the shipments. And also, because George was so successful with selling games, he asked his brother to join on. And his brother accepted. He quit his day job and started working for George, his brother. And that's when the company went from George S. Parker Company, I think it's the exact, George S. Parker and Company, went from that company to Parker Brothers. A few years later, his other brother decided to join as well. So I couldn't say that it was fate for his mom to pass away, but it was probably the best thing when it came to bringing the siblings together. And yes, it was a sad moment for them to lose their mom. I mean, no child should ever have to lose their mom. But because of that setback for them, they were able to grow a stronger bond together and work things out. Now, as you know, the other games that they've produced are, let's see, I have them over here, Famous Men, Baker's Dozen, and some other ones that you haven't really heard of. You can actually find this on the page. But then they were able to create other games, and their company would actually be one of the first video game designers, including Frogger, Popeye. You ever heard of Q*bert? And of course, you've heard of Star Wars. So these are all games that came out of the Parker Brothers company. Now, there's other things that you're going to want to read about. And if you look here, so this is the history page. This is the summary page. That's what we call it, the summary page. In your journal, so in your game design journal, you will actually find this page right here. This is where you take your notes on what you've learned about these people. Boy, my computer does not want to work today. Okay, so right in this section, print this off, or if you already have it printed off, write down your thoughts about the Parker Brothers experience, how they handled their parents' death, the great breaks that happened in their lives in order for them to get going. And what do you think your great break could be? So answer these questions, and you're going to be able to learn a little bit more about what you might experience in the future with game design. This is why we do this section. We want you to learn from other people's experiences. And when you write them down, so you read them and then you write them down, you're going to retain more of the information that you're doing, and you're going to be able to reflect on how it affects your life. The reason why we have so many lines is we're not looking for a yes or no question. Again, this is not to help us. The journal is there to help you and to help keep track of notes. And the more you write it down, the more you're going to retain it and be able to tell people about it when people might ask. Okay, so the next section. Here is where we talk about your interests. What are your interests when it comes to game design? And just so you know, I filled it out too. I'm right. Again, every step that I ask you to take, I'll be taking that in designing this next game, which I'm going to do with you, but also in learning game design better. Because when I teach it to you, I'm actually learning it as well. So let me go through this really fast. Okay, what are your interests? Okay, the first one, it talks about what topic are you most interested in. The examples are zombies, space travel, money. Now for me, I'm interested in money, finance, business, real estate, and possibly wars. So like Risk. I'm really interested in those kind of games. How long do you like your games and why? I'd say probably about 1 to 2 hours. Going more than that, and you either lose track of, you get bored, or you're gonna have to put it away and come back to it later on. And I'm not the type of person that wants to come back and forth, always trying to work with that. Okay, do you like complex games? Yeah, I like medium complexity. Now, there's some books out there, or there's some games out there that actually have to write books on their rules because there's so much information on it. Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons. There are books you can literally read. And I'm not the type of person that really likes reading, especially long, like textbooks or rules. That's not my interest. I'd rather have a short yet complex game to play. Now, the next one says, do you play different types of games? What medium? Now, by medium, it's like what material. So in here, I say more card and board games. The reason why I stay away from video games is because I was a past addict of video games, and I don't want to go there anymore. So I don't actually design video games. And if we end up designing video games, I'll probably give it to someone else. The developing is not that bad, but it's the fact of that's the past that I was at, and I don't want to be there again, and I don't want to bring other people in there because video games are very addicting. I've had plenty of people in my life who have destroyed their lives because of video games, and a lot of people that haven't. If you don't have an addictive nature like that, it's not going to affect you. But I did, so I don't do it anymore. Anyways, number 5, how much interaction do you want with your opponent? I said, I want to race them. I want to be the fastest one to $1 million or the fastest one to do something. And then I want to be able to banter a lot. I want to hype them up. I want to make them think certain things and not boast, but get them riled up. So number 6, how complex and how long do you want the rules to be? Again, I'd rather have it 1 to 2 pages. I don't want a book. I also don't want it so short that you can't really understand how to play the game. And Historical Conquest, you know that the first edition that came out was a single card rule sheet. That was not enough information. We learned it fast, so we were able to change it. Okay, so next was number 7. When would you play, and would you play the game if it took many days? I said I'd play at social gatherings at my house or a friend's house, but I'd want it to end in one sitting. So I don't want it to drag on forever, especially if it's a friend's house. Maybe if it's between me and my kids, those are fun when you can leave it on the table, come back to it later on. But if it's friends and such, it's going to be a hard time, a long time before you can get those friends back. And sometimes you might be able to get 2 of the 3 friends back. It just makes it more difficult. So one sitting, perfect for me. Next one, 8. Where would you play the game? Again, it would be home or a friend's house. And again, if it's going to be a long drawn out game, then it has to be at my house and it has to be with my kids, people that live in my house. If it's at a friend's house, then it's probably one sitting. And then how often would you play, or how often do you play, and how often would you play? Then I said weekly or monthly, depending on when I can get my friends together. So that is the portion on my interests. the reason why I ask you this is because we're going to be doing your customer avatar next, those type of interests. But before we get to that, so that is the top section here. Now, real life application with the Parker brothers is they lost their father very early in life. They then lost their mother early in life. 22 years old is still early in life. And this could have stopped them, but it actually brought them together. So the real life application is if they can do that with loss of their family, you can do it. And yes, it hit George Parker very hard that when he went out to sell, his sales tanked. They were horrible. And not to get too personal, but things have happened in my life where the exact same thing happened. Our sales were skyrocketing, but something happened in my life, and then all of a sudden it just tanked. I mean, it really tanked. And I won't go into any numbers or anything like that, but just believe me, it's really hard when you have things hit you that were not expected, tragedies in life. And so that is actually one of the reasons why we wanted you to focus on your why, the reason why you're doing this game. If it's fun, great, you're going to come back to it after those tragedies have passed. If you have a cause, you're going to be driven to get back to it as fast as possible. But if it's just for money, oh yeah, those tragedies could destroy you when it comes to having your desire to come back to your game. Or if it's just, I have a great idea, well, really, who cares, because you just had a tragedy in your family and it might take you a while to get out of that. So this is why we have to focus on our why. This is why that was the first point that we talked about. Okay, coming down here, you can learn more about the Parker Brothers games, such as Monopoly. This is where an interview with a CEO that actually teaches strategies of the game of Monopoly. So you might want to watch that. Then there's other ones like Clue. Parker Brothers came up with that. Sorry, Risk, Trivial Pursuit, all these different games. And if you want to get a copy of these, like the Game of Oil, you got to check this game out. It's actually quite interesting. Those you can find on Amazon or online for sale. And then the game of Monopoly. So I think most households actually have the game of Monopoly. Now, at least average. The medium household probably has the game of Monopoly somewhere in their house or had it in their house. And then if you want more information about Parker Brothers, as you remember from Parker Brothers history, Parker Brothers then became Hasbro. Hasbro purchased Parker Brothers. So there's more information about the George Parker story, and then also other sites for that. Now, the activity is right here, the player's avatar. And actually, we're going to change that to the customer avatar, because a lot of people think of the player's avatar being in a video game, the avatar being the person that represents you in the game. So that's why we changed it from player's avatar to customer avatar. And the customer avatar is the person, it's this fictitious person that is going to be the one buying your game or playing your game. And you want to figure out who that person is, because you want to map out what their interests are and where your interests are, and trying to merge the two. Because if you're just going after someone else's interests, you're going to lose interest. But if you go after just what you're interested in, these people will lose interest. You need to find a balance, or find an avatar that has a very similar mix of those characteristics. So on to the next page. When we go to your activity, okay, playing your player avatar. Again, we're changing it to customer avatar, but your player avatar, this is where we go through, we map out, like we did with your interests, we're going to do your customer's interests. Again, these are the customer avatar, as it says right here. Now, with your customer avatar, it's very similar to the same questions that you received in yours, but there are some differences. Now, again, I said this is a fictitious person that your game is going to be based off of their interests. You want to see where they are in life, who they are, what kind of money they make, all these different things. And we'll walk you through each step, because we want you to be able to focus on creating a game that will interest them. Because if it just interests you and it does not interest your customer avatar, you're going to have to go back to the drawing table to start up a game, because everything you produce is going to be on your interests. We need to find out this avatar. Okay, so my avatar, his name is John. John is a player between the ages of 9 and 16, more like the 12 to 13-year-old. And then, but with parents who want him to be able to learn while playing a game. So that's a very narrowed down niche. It's not just a young man at this age, and that's it. No, this is a 12 or 13-year-old. So I said 9 to 16, but 12 to 13-year-old who has parents who are willing to buy educational games. Again, my focus is not the same as yours. My focus is to create an educational game. You can create whatever you want, but focus on who is going to be playing your game. Then, question 2, are they man or woman? So if I had a game on My Little Pony or fashion, I would probably put my avatar as a woman. But because mine is about, and I will tell you, it's about game design and the race to create a game, I'm going to have it young men. So again, the cat's out of the bag. Your graduation gift is a physical game where it will help you design games and teach other people how to design games. And it's a race to the end. We'll go more onto it as we go. Okay, so question number 3, why do they play? Okay, so my avatar plays socially, but because he has parents that want him to learn while he's playing, he also gets education out of it. So his mindset is fun. His parents' mindset is education. But they match together in these likes. Okay, how often would they play? Now, I would say daily or weekly. Now, here's the great thing about education games is that because it's in the education system, education is every day during the school day. So why not have them play every day or weekly? And it's a way of continuing to get them to come and play again and again and keep us in their mind. Next one, what kind of attention span do they have? Now, again, mine are 12 or 13-year-olds, so they are sporadic in their attention. They could have very focused attention, and then they could have no attention whatsoever. So my game has to be able to captivate that, to keep them in there. So I'm going to have good imagery. So this basically just focuses on what I'm going to need in order to create a game. I need great imagery. I need a great concept. I need great strategy. And I want to be able to have them focus on the competition between their opponents. Because at this age, it's all about competition. Okay, next question, number 6. Do they always have the same friends play with them? Most of the time, yes, they're going to have the same friends. But we like to focus on creating tournaments around the US. And this is just one of those games where they're actually going to create a tournament in the area so they can play with their friends. And it'd be different friends because it's different people that would come to co-ops or groups, tournaments. So it really works out that way. Okay, so number 7, when do they play the game? Now, most of these 12 to 13-year-olds, they're not going to stay up late at night and play these games daily, maybe once a week, once a month, every other month. They might do a nighttime game. But most of the time, they're going to play during the day with their friends. So, and then the last one is, what type of topic do they like in their games? And I said, they like wars, they like end of the world, and then game design. Of course, this is the graduation gift for this course, so game design just makes sense. You're here for game design, so that's one of your interests. Now, this one actually follows up with the second page. As you get deeper into the psyche, into the thinking of your avatar. Now, this one asks you, what medium do they like to play? Now, if they're like me, because I'm going to create a board game, they're going to want a board game. So this is where I start thinking of, these are my interests, these are their interests, this is what I'm going to produce, and I need to find the people that want to play board games. That's going to be their focus. The next one, number 10, what do they hope to get from playing and why? Now, again, we talked about this. The 12 to 13-year-old is going to want to have fun and be social with their friends. Their parents are going to want them to learn something while doing it. And so in this way, they're actually fulfilling both needs, the parents' needs and the youth's needs. Number 11, do they have a lot of money or little money to spend? This is like if you're going to buy expansions, buy the game. Well, actually, these 12 to 13-year-olds don't have much money. This is why their parents will pay for it. And because the parents want an educational game, they're willing to pay up a little bit. But it's because their kids are learning. Okay, so number 11. Number 12. Do they like complex games or simple and fast to understand? Now, I said they like complex games, but not too long in the instructions. Nobody wants long instructions, at least in my avatar. Some people do. Some people like books of rules. And the last one, 13. Now describe what this person looks like. Get detailed, because you need to focus on who this person is so that when you have a question, you can actually ask them. And in this, I'm talking about imagination. You're able to focus on that person and say, what would you like? So you create an avatar, a customer avatar, create someone that's going to be playing your game, and you're going to be able to use this information to create this persona of a person. So you can actually ask them questions when you're designing this game. Again, it's imagination, but when you focus on the game and the person's likes, you're going to be able to create a game that a person likes. And it's not going to be much of a question if they're going to like it. You might have to tweak things depending on their desires, but focus on that avatar, because you don't want to focus on that avatar and then focus on a 60-year-old playing the same game, or someone that likes money and then all of a sudden focus on zombies. When games get too complex with topics, they get boring and drawn out, and it just ends the game. It's not a very good way of, it gets too complex for the mind. There's just too many topics. Focus on one great topic and play off that. Now, if you want to say zombies in space, okay, you can do that. But if you're going to do like money and zombies, please no, that's just way too confusing. Zombies come through with wads of cash. It just does not really work out. So focus on one topic and focus on your avatar and what they really want. Now, the reason, again, I'm going to go back to this. The reason why I had you write up your interests and then your customer avatar's interests is because now you're going to map from one to the other and make sure that you're on the same page. Because if you're not on the same page, again, one of you is going to be very interested. The other person is not going to be interested. The reason why we're doing customer avatar is because we want them to merge those interests. And you might not have the exact same interests as your avatar, which might be interesting to think of. Just because if you don't have the same interests, couldn't you just change it? Yes, you could. But you know what customer you want. You know what your friends want. I have friends that totally disagree with me on certain things. There you go. If I want to focus on my avatar, I'm going to give up that one certain thing because I want them to play the game and be excited about it and in the end buy the game. So this is week 2 of our game design course. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please come back and ask any questions you might have. Put them in the comments below. Go on our Facebook page and ask us any questions that you might have there. This is the time for you to grow. If you have anything going on where you're confused about something, you're losing the concepts, if anywhere in this, like the customer avatar or such, please ask it. We're here for you. And that's why we have this course put together, so that I don't have to continue to talk to individuals about game design and telling them the exact same thing. I'm going to tell them, come to my course, try it out, and then ask me questions from there. And everyone that asks questions on the Facebook page or in the comments, we will answer all of them. So ask your questions and enjoy. Hopefully you like this. So this is your assignment for next week, finding your interests and the avatar's interests. Come back with me next week, where we'll talk about that and how it merges into the next step. Because we need all this stuff as we go through these different steps. So thanks again for joining me. Can't wait to talk to you next week. Take care. Bye.